Yeah, whatever, man. Whatever, man. Whatever, man. Whatever,
Man, final few days of the election. You know,
in the dog days.
Home stretch. What we got? 72 hours?
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Nah, a little over.
Well, yeah, I mean,
96.
today's Friday.
The
So
final 100 ever.
Yeah.
Yep. I've been telling people
100.
4 days today, you know, so it's becoming real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does early voting stop this weekend?
Stops on
Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday's the last day.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow. Episode 38.
Yep. And because of 38, we've had to go to baseball. I mean, you know, no one knows DBs and safeties in the NFL that much.
Champ Bailey?
No. Ronnie Lott, Steve Atwater maybe. But, yeah, Kurt Schilling. One of the greatest. I mean, bloody sock Kurt Schilling, you know. But, yeah. So,
Did Nolan Ryan break his nose too?
No, he's got a few. That was Robin Ventura. Gave him the noogie. Remember that?
Yeah.
But, yeah, so another election week episode. We are taping on a Friday, and special guest today, Everett Stubbs. Man, welcome back.
Yeah,
Our future senator, hopefully.
happy to be here. Yeah, I think we've got a good chance, man.
Yeah.
You've been working.
We've been working hard.
That's what it takes, is that working.
Proud of the team, too. I mean, we've
Yeah.
got a bunch of good people that have been hitting it from all angles. And
So how long have you been doing this? I mean, because I think you and I really just, you introduced yourself. We got to talking. What was it? Has it been a year?
Oh, well, so I had my announcement party, I guess you could say, back in September of 23. So it's been, we came out with the live video announcing on Father's Day of 23 that I was running, and it was kind of a tribute to, you know, where we're at as a society is not the direction I want to see us going for our children's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, things are getting bizarre, they're getting kooky, and
Yeah.
you know, it's not the world that we grew up in, and I was concerned, to say the least. So.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, but...
And it's not as, it hasn't hit South Carolina as much as it has, I think, on a national level, is like what you're saying. But same thing. I mean, Guffey and I went in 22.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our motivation and inspiration was what we saw during COVID, right? I mean, is that just...
Well, that was your motivation. My motivation was just to keep somebody I thought would be a huge detriment from getting in.
Well,
that was my primary reason.
So, well, I can tell you this, right? I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. They're in public schools here. You know what you see happening in the school
Your 6-year-old's in the same school as my 6-year-old.
Yeah, they're in first grade together, right? And so, you know, when you look at it, when you take a step back and look at it from the outside in, you're like, man, this really is a different world than what we came up in. Mm-hmm. And it's not that we have progressed, but it's not necessarily in the good ways all the time. I mean,
right.
You know, so my wife and I took a hard look at things, and I'm sure we're going to get into it, but my district, District 17 is really poorly underfunded. And we're like, you know, how do I say it? Kind of the blue collar, low income, working man.
The redhead stepchild.
Yeah, exactly. And no man's land is what I call District 17. We're between, you know, Columbia and Charlotte, or we're the south side of Rock Hill too.
Yeah, but I mean, they need a voice.
Exactly.
I mean, besides just filibustering an education bill from time to time.
And that's it. Effectiveness is key, right? And so I'm a firm believer that, you know, you get more flies or bees with honey than vinegar, and building relationships is the key to getting things done.
Yeah, that's true. But I think before we get moving too much further, we need to thank our sponsors.
Yeah.
We breezed right by it, but thank you to Comer Distributing once again. I think they're in your district.
They sure
aren't
are.
They? Yeah.
Sure are. And
Chip and the team down there?
Yep. And today's pint is by Sycamore Brewing, and it is Beach Candy IPA.
Yeah, another Indian Pale Ale. It's a little muggier, warmer today, so we decided to go back towards tried a lighter.
Filming live from Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Back underneath the cabana.
From Heath Lago. That's what we should go.
Yeah. What do you think? I know you're a Bud Light guy.
It's
but,
not Coors Light guy, not Bud Light. But no, I mean, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy drinking.
Yeah. I like
it's got a little bit of a bite on the back end that reminds me of an IPA, but it's not too.
I think I'm getting used to it.
Are you?
Yeah, I mean, I always, every time I'd go into a brewery, I'd say, give me the closest thing to Coors Light that you have.
Yeah.
Or like whatever the lightest beer is. But as
Yep.
we have tried different ones, and I forget which kind it was that we had last week or last episode.
We had the off the tracks stout.
Stout.
Remember the
Yeah, and
shout
so
it-
even that was something I would have
Stout it
never
out
thought
loud.
that I would like.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And, it wasn't bad at all either.
It was like if espresso and Bud Light had a baby last week.
It was dark
with,
like coffee.
with a stout.
Yeah. But what do you think, Everett?
I like it. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm kind of I like to drink a beer when it's hot.
Yeah.
I've been working in the yard or whatever, and this kind of reminds me of that refreshing kind of
Yeah, it is.
tingle to it.
Beach Candy is a good name for it.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
pretty can too. And then we got our Dave's Hot Chicken. which
Yeah, not
opened
even a
up in Rock
sponsor
Hill.
yet.
Yeah.
But no, man, it was getting close to lunchtime when we're filming. I mean, it's just around 2:00 on a Friday, and I said, man, I'm hearing a lot about this Dave's Hot Chicken, right over there on Cherry Road, and man, it was packed. Even at 1:30 when I got there, lunch crowd was still there. Basically, decided to get a bunch of boneless wings or.
Good, but that hot. I started off with hot, not
Folks,
extra hot.
They got, they have, what is it, 6 or 7 flavors,
Yeah.
and it's no sauce, light, mild, medium, hot, extra hot.
Well, and as everyone can see, not only do I have my beer, I've got a water and a Mountain Dew. Just
But,
because it gets hot. I don't
but
want to
yeah.
guzzle a beer just to get rid of the
But it's
heat.
good, man. It's got that good Dave's Hot Chicken. It's got that Nashville hot, a little bit. I mean, it's got a kick, but it's a little sweet, so it mellows it out a little bit. I know Everett was a fan of the mediums.
Yeah.
You and I.
Look, I'm
Hey.
still in the midst of a hard campaign. Right?
we also have the antacid.
Yeah, he doesn't want to have
On
acid
standby.
reflux knocking on doors.
That's
I'm
right.
Everett. Stubbs.
So,
Yeah, you
But-
still got more doors. You're about to hit the campaign trail again. You're in the final stretch.
Yeah.
And this is the most stressful time of a campaign
yeah.
because,
You feel
The
like
la-
you've done all the work, you've done everything you can do.
but you don't want to
Let up.
get into the election and then feel like if I would have just went out and worked a little bit harder.
yeah.
And so it's like you're at that final stretch of a marathon, and it's like you just have to push a little bit more, a little bit harder.
Well, and so, it's kind of like I'm trying to keep myself busy too, because one, you don't think about it. I'm a worker naturally. And so as long as I keep working, I don't really think about, and you hear like Nick Saban talk about it's the process, right? Not
Yeah.
the product or whatnot. And so I'm thinking about the process, making sure I'm doing the work, making
Yeah.
sure I'm checking the boxes. And it keeps me from even worrying about what the result's going to be because, keep my mind busy, keep me busy. So
No, that's a good outlook. I mean, just exactly what you said.
Knowing that you
keep
just
working.
gave it all.
Just keep doing what you're doing, plug away.
Yeah.
Until 7:00 on Tuesday. And it'd
Yeah,
be
that's
what it
the
be,
tough part.
as the Guff says.
Yeah, it's going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
all day, every day.
I know, man. So we got Miracle League in the morning, and then we go same thing, knocking doors, putting some signs out.
I got to go to a funeral in Greenville
Oh, do you?
for a uncle that passed away, a great
Sorry to hear
uncle.
that.
And got to get to do that and fight through that western South Carolina traffic, and especially with Clemson having a night game, it's going to be packed.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's
then-
right.
Carolina's got their night game. Ugh.
Yeah.
So are you a Tiger or a Gamecock? Evan?
Well, I'm just gonna not comment anymore. It's funny.
Already a politician.
That's right. So hey, I don't need to lose any votes between now and Tuesday. No, so in all reality, I like them both, but I'm neither. Okay, I'm a Georgia Bulldogs fan. So, and what I tell people is I'm
And that's the
equally
point he
hated by
lost
all.
the race.
So and I'll tell you the history. My family's from South Georgia. I was born and raised in Greenville. And I probably would have gravitated to Clemson had it not been for the fact I grew up going to Georgia games. And
Yeah.
stuff.
And they got relegated down to the high school league.
It's beautiful in
that's
Athens.
That's right.
It is.
So were you down there whenever Corey Smith was real big playing?
Oh yeah,
all the
yeah.
time?
I was in college when he was playing a lot.
Yeah.
And so, And I was. See,
I went down there to see him before in Athens.
So
Yeah.
so I didn't go to Georgia. I went to Lander University in Greenwood, and Lander was a true suitcase college.
Oh, wow, yeah.
You know, and so every weekend, Thursday night was the big night at college, but Friday everybody packed up, went to Clemson, Georgia, or South Carolina. It was about an hour to an
Either
hour
way.
and a
That's
half
pretty
to any of
equidistant,
them. Yeah, so it was. Yeah, I went to Athens a lot. A lot of my friends went to Clemson. A lot of them went to Carolina. So.
Hey, Georgia's got a good ball club this year. Well, I mean, you know.
You might find out.
Yeah. So, what are some things, looking at this next week optimistically? What are some things that you see yourself working on? You're successful in your bid. You get in the Senate. You go through the hazing process
Right.
that the Senate does, and
Yeah. Looking forward to that, by the way.
Something about those RJ Diddy parties. I don't know if they're going to still be happening.
Mr. Stubbs, you're going to have to sit in the back over there.
That's right. So, no, actually, the first thing I want to do is meet with local municipalities, counties, economic development leaders. My whole objective is to make District 17 thrive and prosper. And so the first thing we need to do is get on the same page, right?
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think getting the leadership together, because right now they're all kind of doing their own thing, it seems like. And, I think if we're pulling in the same direction together, we can get a lot more done. So the very first call I'm going to make, if successful, is going to be the economic development leadership throughout the district and the various counties and municipalities.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And, I look forward to working with you. I know Guffey does too.
Well, even that
on-
south side of Rock Hill where we just had that group pull out.
Yeah.
What was it, $440 million
Yeah, Palladius or whatever it was.
yeah.
With the
economic
wafers.
development deal that pulled out? I mean,
Yeah.
that's going to be your district, and there's plenty of opportunity there without even going down into Chester and everything. But now you do have the, what do they call it? It's a county agreement between York and Chester County, to whereas if you bring in economic development, both benefit.
Right, they share
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it right now, but
Well, in not only economic development, I think an infrastructure investment is a big
Infrastructure
thing.
is
You and I have
huge
had
for
some
me.
meetings with some folks, some joint York County and Chester
And so,
County.
and I'll just tell you, right? I mean, it makes sense to regionalize as much as you can because it saves money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you want the government to be good stewards of your tax dollars, and the way to do that is make your tax dollars go as far as possible.
Correct.
Regionalization helps you accomplish that goal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and with the growth of Charlotte, so goes the growth of Fort Mill, Rock Hill, and Chester. Chester seems to be the next sort of bedroom
I'll start
community.
sending the Yankees down that way. Hey, y'all leave for me. Hey, you don't want to live here, man. Chester's beautiful.
Well, so on that note, actually, so our law firm does a ton of real estate closings
Yeah.
in Chester County, and we've seen an influx of people from the West Coast too.
Yeah.
Oregon, Washington, even California. So I mean,
Yeah.
All three blue states.
Yeah.
and to be quite honest with you, that's what they're trying to escape. I mean,
Yeah.
the taxes.
I'm about to say
killing
sometimes it's your center folks or just your common sense folks who's like, man, I've had it, man. This is just nutty.
Yeah.
Oregon, Northern California are
Paying
great
too much in
places. They're
taxes.
beautiful.
Yeah.
But
Well, and Chester historically always had I remember, a video I even made back whenever I ran for county council in 2020 was talking about the corruption in Chester. And a lot of that's been brought down. There's a new sheriff in town, literally and physically. But, a lot of that's been brought down and exposed. But I think that's the first step that you have to take on getting everything back on track, and you have to make those connections with the municipalities. And truthfully, it's the easiest way to represent your people because each one of those people were elected by X number of people. And if you can work with the municipalities, it's the easiest way to represent your constituency.
yeah, for sure.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, so we kind of hit rock bottom in Chester, right? I mean, our county supervisor is now in a state penitentiary. Our former county sheriff is now in a federal penitentiary. So, it was rock bottom for us. We were making
Yeah.
the news for all the wrong reasons. And so we've been able to turn that page, start a new chapter. The groundwork is there. The good, the government is, transparent for the most part. You can trust them for the most
Right.
part. We can take this thing to another level, and I think the Senate seat is ultimately the last thing lagging behind. So,
Yeah, that's we talked about some infrastructure projects. I think we had a meeting down there, and you and I have had some discussions about a project that connects Chester and Rock Hill. And, I met some of the county council folks down there, and, just trying to balance your infrastructure dollars, your education dollars with that growth, right? With that economic development that's coming. And, for that community of Chester, they're skeptical is what I sort of picked up, with.
I think
what
they've
you're
had
talking
empty
about.
promises for at least 8 years.
Well, right.
So,
Exactly.
Well, and just the outright corruption, the criminal actions that were going on. So you can tell, they're a little skeptical, but I think with the right leadership, with the change in law enforcement leadership, county council, and then,
Well, and we changed the form of government down there too, right? And I'm going to talk about Chester a lot, obviously, because that's where my practice is. That's where I've been involved in the most government stuff, even though I live here in Southeast York County. But we changed the form of government. We went from the supervisor, which is elected, to now an administrator, and we added an at-large county council member. And I thought that was just a big step in the right direction.
I think York County should do the same.
So, we've come a long ways, okay? And so, we're right there. Strike while the iron's hot. Let's finish the job. Let's get things done.
Yeah.
And let's move us in the right direction. And then, we'll see what the future holds. But we want growth. Well, we don't want Fort Mill growth either, right?
Yeah.
We want to be able to keep our identity.
I think Clover's facing that right now.
Well, and so, I guess the fortunate side for us is that we've been able to watch how it's become kind of a train wreck for other local,
you
areas.
want smart growth.
Right. So, so we should learn from what others have experienced. And so that's what we're looking to do. We don't want to just open up the floodgates of cookie cutter homes in 1,000-house neighborhoods, right? We want to do it in a much more tasteful way to keep our coin.
Yeah, maintain the character,
Yep.
the fabric of the community while still growing and building, like what you said, that smart growth.
I've always thought we should build up more.
What do you mean, higher density stuff?
Yeah, well, higher density, and as far as within our cities, if we really want them to grow right, that's what brings in the businesses. If you put a 15-story building, and you've got each one of those there. Oh, good old Yellow Jacket.
Oh, there you go.
And you put everyone there, a business is going to want to open up right by it.
Sure.
But you'll also have areas like Great Falls, which I think they're making a turn. You got the outdoor place down there. It's become huge.
And
Carolina
the
Adventure
park.
World.
Yep.
Oh, y'all got a skate park down there?
No, state park.
Oh, state
but
park.
we do have a skate park.
I was about to say.
Back
uh-oh.
up.
Well, so tank.
Back up.
So there's a gentleman.
I'm officially announcing my bid to
Go
challenge
get them black
Stubbs.
roller skates, son.
So there is, however, a skate park going in downtown Chester too.
Oh, wow.
So
Hey.
So why is Rock Hill behind?
Hey,
you know,
no.
so-
We're embracing this regionalism. We don't
That's
even have.
it.
Yeah.
We don't need one Rock Hill. We can go down Chester.
Oh,
now.
whatever.
So in fact, you can ride your skateboard all the way down 72 if you want. So,
No.
I'm scared driving down 72, much
right.
less riding
He's
a
got
skateboard.
black rollerblades.
okay.
No rollerblades. Rollerblades are for whenever you're drinking Bud Light.
That's right.
Man, you beat me to it. You saw it coming, did you?
Jump out in front of it.
Well,
See, you take your ADHD medication.
That's
you
right.
Can get in front of it.
That's right.
Sorry, man. We get way off subject. But yeah,
No,
skate
it-
park out there, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
well,
that'd
and one of the things I think I've already talked to both of you about too. Right now we have what's been a very successful program in South Carolina with the tax incentive packages for abandoned buildings.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I want to see that happen for houses because what you see in places like Chester, Winsboro, Great Falls is all these abandoned homes that are, one, they're a nightmare for law enforcement, right? That's where a lot of
Drugs, crime.
all that stuff is happening. But two, you could see the infrastructure is already in place there, right? They already have water, natural gas. They already have.
And
Wasn't county enforcement?
and we've talked.
County enforcement should be handling that, correct?
Good luck.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about that, and there's whether it's abandoned building tax credits, there's textile mill tax credits, there's all these incentives out there, right? But never for, say, on the smaller scale residential side. So when you brought that up, that was interesting. why can't smaller businesses partake in these tax incentives that are offered out to say?
Look, I'm all for it, and I get blasted a lot of times as Rhino because I'll vote for tax credits or tax incentives.
Right.
I'm all for anything that's going to lower taxes, and I don't care who it goes to.
Well,
Yeah.
and so here's my argument, right? If you've got a house beside you that's abandoned, fallen down, one, they're not paying hardly any taxes on it anyways, right? But two, it's bringing your property value down. Right?
Yeah.
So if you can turn that property around, they're going to end up having to pay some taxes into the local municipality or county, and hopefully lower your taxes while also bringing your property value up. It's a win-win-win the way I look at it.
You make the investment to bring that thing back up to habitable.
All right.
You make it economical for a builder, let's say, or just a small business owner who, instead of buying a rental property, he can now go into Chester, buy that house, fix it up. The tax credit of, say, whatever it is, 10, 20%, helps with the lift. And it's a one-time deal. And now you got, whether it's rental income, someone in there living there, it's the velocity of that dollar that now you got someone in there paying taxes, paying sales tax because they're now shopping in the area, all those things. So that's what I'm saying. If you're smart about it, and as long as you get the cities or the counties involved, where everyone understands, and our state DOR understanding the tax liabilities and the credits involved, I think that's a good discussion to have for sure.
And downtown Chester is beautiful.
Oh,
Right.
It really is. And truthfully, the way the railroad came in there, it should have been one of the bigger cities. Same thing with Spartanburg. Spartanburg and Chester should have been like two of the major cities in South Carolina with everything that was connected. And basically it came down to poor municipal management that caused it to fail. But it is a beautiful area. I used to always joke around with my wife that, whenever it comes time for retirement, I'm going to move down to Chester. Well, now we've changed that. She's like, we're going to Clover. We're not going to Chester. I'm like, well, both of them's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. No kidding.
Well, and I'll tell you, we haven't failed. We're in a lull, is what I tell people.
I meant from as it was growing. Like they kind of missed that big boat with the rail coming in.
Well, in York County and Chester County, again, through its history, was always tied to textiles, right? Cotton and some of those things. So when that left and started that decline in, the 80s?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take long for an area to turn around. Think about Fort Mill was nothing until 20 years ago.
Yep.
I mean, it really was nothing. You had a very small rundown downtown, which was, a block long, and there really wasn't much at all. And you had TKK kind of coming up.
And then hobos put it on the,
Yeah.
Well, it takes something, right? I mean, you got to start the momentum.
The anchor.
The stone has to start rolling down the hill with some kind of push.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for you, man.
Get that
I think
going down in Chester,
that's what that's what I want to do. I mean, the whole reason that I'm doing all of this, and it's been a lot. I mean, y'all been through all this too. The whole reason is because I want to see the area that my family's in, and other people that I care about really thrive and do well. And so, we got a perfect opportunity. We got to seize on this opportunity, though.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't think I share any of your district. I think Climer is
We share some.
my only senator.
Yeah, Everett and I share a little bit on the south side.
Yeah, but I'm happy to work with you. I'm excited to.
Yeah, Randy Liggins.
Waiting for you to get in there and see
look,
if we can work together. We'll all be part of the same delegation for sure.
Well, and let me tell you this. I mean, I've talked to John King and Andy McDaniel, too, obviously House members that are Democrats. But listen, I represent their people. They represent I hope to represent their people. Yeah. And so we're going to work together for the better of all communities.
That's a good perspective to have, for sure. In our state, again, I know some folks like to shun it, but Democrats, Republicans, and then there's the Freedom Party. We all have to work together for the benefit of the folks who live here, the folks we represent. So put your personal crap aside. Let's go to work. So before you get out of here, tell folks how they can get a hold of you if you need any help.
Yeah, so I've been a lot of people give me a hard time about this. I give my cell phone number out like it's candy. It's 803-374-0306. I tell people I'm running for something, not from anything. Please call me. I want to be helpful. Yeah. So one of my complaints is, and y'all take it for what it's worth, is that sometimes I had trouble getting through to elected officials when there was an issue.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy, don't call my office, call me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and especially on the Senate side too. You know, they got 3 or 4 staff members.
I know.
You know,
Yeah.
over
You
on
got
the
an
people
entire
side.
staff.
On the people
I
side.
hear you.
Well,
Well,
thanks for coming out.
and I'm sure you can use door knockers for this last little bit.
Yeah.
People to make phone calls, last minute phone calls. So anybody that wants to help, please reach out to Everett.
I'll tell you this.
What's your
funny
website?
thing
How to
for
get a hold of
it,
you?
it's votestubbs.com.
Okay.
And so, but,
That's 2 B's.
and so you never know with the, the people that you meet. I was at my office one night before the primary making phone calls. Met a nice lady from Catawba, South Carolina when I called her. Now my kid shoots bow and arrows with her in her bow and arrow camps. I mean, it's been a blessing, this whole process.
Hey, I'm glad you bring that up. That's so true. When I go door knocking and stuff, I meet, and again, not a lot of people want to come to the door. They think you're selling like security systems or something.
Roofs right now, roofs.
Hail Dales. But I'm like, no, I'm not that guy. But every now and again, you'll meet a great person in a neighborhood, and I make habit of writing thank you cards back to them. And when you get a return handwritten note is when you know you've made a connection with somebody, and that's always great to do in campaigns.
And I'm horrible at that. Like I'm horrible at sending out thank you letters or anything handwritten because I can't tell you how many I write and then never get them in the mail, and then time passes and I'm just not organized enough.
Well,
I need staff.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should go to the Senate.
Yeah.
That's right. So,
Hey,
Consider,
we've got
Senator Climer sitting over here.
hey,
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Everett.
for having me.
Thank you. Everett.
Introducing the senator from York County.
Wes Climer.
I probably would have picked some different
Is that
walk-on
the
music.
end? Yeah. Okay, so what would be your walk-on song?
I don't know.
It's got to be, something fun.
It's got to be something fun.
Heath,
I
you
don't
want to
know.
play mine?
Yeah, what's yours? Yeah.
See if he can do it. Here you go.
No, this is Wes.
There you go. I'll take that one. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's better than YMCA.
Take door number 2.
Yeah.
No, he is going to go. I know he's going to go Slim Shady.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of mom spaghetti.
No. Here you go.
No. He's going to go.
Obi Trice, real name, no
Yeah.
gimmicks. 2 trailer park girls go round the outside, round the outside, round the outside.
Hey, that's when he runs for school board.
Right, and then on TV when they get a question that nobody wants to answer, they'll say, "Well, we'll just have to leave it there."
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
The intro song was a good segue.
icebreaker.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, we just had Everett Stubbs on running for Senate District 17, just south of us here, just south of your district.
That's right.
So what's your number? 13?
15.
15,
Yeah.
okay. So you're up for re-election again?
I am.
Stiff competition?
I have an opponent of the Alliance Party.
True communist.
I've spent some time trying to figure out what they're all about and have yet to locate a precise answer.
They align with the sickle and what's
I thought it was like a Star Wars reference at first, but I didn't.
Okay. So you're like Guffey. You're running pretty much unopposed. And I know.
You never run out of
I know.
those.
I know the
Yeah.
axiom. I know. Run
Even
scared.
when no one's on the ballot against you, you're still competing with Mickey Mouse and
Yeah.
the right.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see what mine looks like this
Mickey
year.
Mouse number is. My
but-
Mickey Mouse number in 2016 was like 4.
Oh, yeah.
4%. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I think even on county council, whenever I ran, because my general was unopposed, I only got like 90% of the vote.
Yeah. Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I think when I ran the first time, it was something similar. I mean, 90,
Well,
95.
People either love me or hate me.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much that way.
I won't-
Or don't know me. Just choose because I'm the only one on the ballot.
I won't say who this was, but a member of the Senate once told me in his response to constituents who called him angry about something he had done.
Yeah.
And he said, well, fine. Then this is his words, not mine. don't vote for me. I don't need your vote. It's only 50% plus one that I need. And I thought, well, that's one approach, not the approach I would take.
Yeah,
but,
no.
that's your approach.
Hey, you do you.
Yeah. Even I'm not that dumb.
Well, man, we wanted to.
He's not coming back. If it goes
I wonder if there's a correlation.
cautionary tale. Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this being sort of the election episode,
Yeah.
We've had Everett on. That's sort of a contested, hotter race
Yeah.
in this area. I know we got several school board races, but want to bring you on, just talk about nationally.
Sure.
This is just a fascinating time to be in politics, especially on a national level.
Yeah.
Just seeing what social media, the Joe Rogans, how mainstream media, it seems to be ceding ground to how voters get their information, right? Some could say it's a credibility issue. Others just say it's a natural progression of competition in the marketplace. And so wanted to just, it's always fascinating conversation with you when we talk about these trends, these things you're seeing. What are you seeing nationally? What interests you? What do you?
You're talking about the media stuff?
Yeah.
Very fascinating over the last 2 weeks. Look, trust is earned, respect is earned, not given, and the legacy media's path to irrelevancy continues apace. Right? I mean, you can compare and contrast two anecdotes from really the last week. One was a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, the Kill Tony guy.
You kill Tony, and I can't confess to being I don't really know. I haven't watched a lot of Kill Tony stuff,
Yeah.
but apparently he's
The Reels. It's good.
I should watch it. Right? A lot of people.
Joe
like it.
Rogan's Comedy Club in Austin, Texas.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. And so a stand-up comedian gets up and makes an offhand comment at
that's right.
a Trump rally, and the mainstream press makes that out like it is an official policy position of the campaign and attempts to use it to batter Donald Trump for really 72 straight hours.
Yes.
That was all anybody wanted to talk
Kind of
about.
like how the Republicans have with Mark Cuban. And
Yeah.
It was like 3 days later, the sitting president of the United States calls half of the country garbage.
Yeah.
And the mainstream media says, no, you misplaced the apostrophe.
Yes.
It was possessive, not plural.
Correct.
I mean,
It was a joke.
So these guys, they were irrelevant, and they
Marching
are more
for- yeah.
irrelevant now than they ever have been.
well, there's only a select few that own them.
That is true. Yeah,
That becomes the biggest problem.
Well, and again, I mean, those types of choices that you're talking about. I mean, you're ceding ground.
yeah.
We talk about this in politics, but I'm sure it's in any industry. I mean, if folks don't believe what you're saying, you lose votes.
Sure.
Say in this business, you lose market share in their business.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a joke.
And then you sort of layer into these other two recent anecdotes the fight at the Washington Post about whether they're going to endorse Kamala Harris or not. And
yeah.
10% of their readers abandoned their subscription, reporters and editors resigned because they discovered that Jeff Bezos wasn't going to allow the Washington Post to be an
Endorse
organ
anybody.
of the DNC press operation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't.
Okay.
And it's not that.
And Bezos is a Democrat.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That he's a Trump supporter or a fan.
Sure.
He just said we don't need to endorse.
He just said, let's be independent. Let's be unbiased. And
You mean how media is supposed to be?
it's a novel thought, I guess, in our time. But yeah, I mean, he tried to go back. I think the Los Angeles Times did the same thing, didn't they?
Yeah.
So those were the two major publications.
USA Today.
Okay,
As
legacy style media of print media that said, hey, we're just going to stay out of it. I mean, because this election nationally is close.
Yeah.
You and I talked about it last episode. We can't tell if it's going to be, in those 6 or 7 battlegrounds, if 4 or 5 go one way, it's, Trump or Kamala Harris getting 300, the opponent getting 230.
Yeah.
And so that's a victory by all measure.
But the early voting numbers are staggering,
Yeah.
almost scary for the amount. I mean, we've already had 1/3 of our entire voting population in South Carolina voted. That was as of a few days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, there was, I don't know, over the last 20 years, voter participation has increased significantly. I think part of that is a function of the hyperpolarization of this age, which is a byproduct of the media diminishing itself. And
Algorithms.
and so everywhere you look, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, if you're on TikTok, whatever, everywhere you look, you see politics.
Yes.
And so our culture has become more heavily politicized, ergo the vote totals are going to consistently increase. More voter participation, frankly, is a good thing, right? You would rather have more than less.
What's the easiest way to get people out to vote, though? It's by stoking fear.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Regardless of which side, you stoke that fear to get people to actually show up. Whether you want them to participate in a campaign or not, it's often fear that drives that.
Well, and you and I have talked about this on this platform. We've, for the two listeners, we have talked about maybe pulled an Obama shame type conversation when it comes to primary voting or whatever, when it's like 6, 7, 8%. And we're like, guys, come on. I mean, I know you're going to bitch and moan as soon as the folks who got in or win a primary don't reflect your values or the way you want them to go. And, so, I mean, it like you said, it's a good thing. I think greater access. And so if you could take the two listeners back to, because you dealt with early voting.
Yeah.
With COVID and all that kind of stuff, access to the ballot, mail drop box, all those types of things were, I would say, experimented in other states.
Sure.
And you were part of that solution, right?
Sure. Try to make it easier to vote, harder to cheat.
Right.
That was the whole idea. Yeah.
And
Which should be everyone's goal.
Right.
yeah, I mean, that's what we talked about earlier, because Vivek, I think, said at the MSG rally for Trump that we're talking about the Kill Tony stuff. He said when Trump wins, we're going to go back to federal holiday. We're only going to vote in person. We're only going to vote on election day, which I don't support.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I'm fine with early voting.
I mean, if the federal government usurped the states,
right.
I mean, so that is, I guess that's possible. The amount of South Carolinians, the huge volume of South Carolinians voting early, that's the people voting with their feet. They like it.
Yeah.
And I'd be surprised if it is a popular position to try to take that away from people.
I liked it because I could walk in, walk out. I drove by the first time, the line was out the door. I did a complete circle. Now, the first early vote, and I think I showed up, and me and you, because I actually showed up about the same time you did, and we waited in line for 30, 45 minutes before we could go vote.
Yep.
But,
That was at the operations center.
Yeah.
I think, we were in line for a long time.
And it was a huge line. But as, being able to show up and having that time, and it's hard because life takes over. Mm-hmm. So how many people would refuse to vote just because they don't have time to wait that long to vote?
Oh, yeah. I went to York Tech twice before actually going in an early voting this go around.
I went on Tuesday mid-afternoon and was in and out in 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, it was great.
Was the line out the door?
No, the line was just at the door at that time.
I went yesterday. There was no line.
At York Tech?
Yeah.
Okay. And
So I walked into the Baxter Hood,
Yeah.
walked right in. Only thing I had to wait on was the machine to open up.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I've been telling folks, Clinton College, no line.
Yeah.
Literally walk in, high five the volunteer, and show your ID and go.
So I'm sorry to, take us down a little path, but York County was one of two counties that, and this was in the South Carolina Daily Gazette yesterday, I think. We were one of two counties that still does not have a sufficient number of poll workers for election day.
So
we require them to be there all day long. That's one reason.
It's one reason, and then the pay's not particularly great, but I think the success of early voting. This is why I'll ask you all this question: the success of early voting, and you have a handful of voting centers that are strategically located throughout the county to serve populations in different parts of the county. Leads me to think maybe consolidating some of those polling locations on election day would be a way to save money and make the entire system operate more efficiently. And I don't know what the appropriate number. I don't know. What do y'all think about that?
Yeah, I mean, in essence, if you have a third of the voting electorate voting prior to election day,
Yeah.
reason would tell you you could probably consolidate down to some.
That's what it feels like.
As
Yeah.
long as you you could communicate, let folks know where you're changing precincts. Your new precinct is here.
I think it would
Or
just
your
bull.
polling place. Like
Yeah.
we go to Grace Lutheran on election day. If all of a sudden I go there and I've allotted, let's say, 30 minutes before I go to work, if I had gone to Grace Lutheran, I'm like, man, crap, and it had changed. Because again, let's be honest, a lot of times voters, that's what
Getting
they
the
do.
information, yeah.
That routine. That,
Yeah. Sure.
And then you feel like your vote's being stolen because you didn't have enough time to go to the new polling place.
Yeah,
and,
Sure.
So informing, letting folks know, I would do it well ahead of any time they had to vote.
So I guess the answer is if there were adequate notice and a real effort to let voters know, send them postcards, advertise.
Yeah.
Then you probably like the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, efficiency makes sense to me.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Well, and my thing would be, okay, so if we think about our elderly, so let's just use Oakwood Acres as an example.
Mm-hmm.
If it's an older neighborhood that's used to just going to the church that's within the neighborhood
Right.
to be able to vote.
So my parents still vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they are trying to change and get over there to it, to them, does it make it harder? For one, and I think it will depend on each area and what the area feels. But I do think York County could do it. Ultimately, as long as people are voting in person as opposed to mail-in ballots, I feel a lot safer in the security of our elections.
Sure. And I don't recall where I read this, so I'm sorry I can't cite it. But I do remember reading that statistically the most secure form of voting is the early vote because the folks who are working the early vote operation are the highly trained professionals who do it over and over again, are most familiar with the law, are most familiar with the rules around voter ID and so on
Right.
and so forth. And so they do everything by the book. Whereas, and not that anyone attempts not to do it the right way on election day, but there are more variables at play.
yeah,
There's several
it's
hundred more
professionals
people
versus
involved.
amateurs.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. That
Yeah.
reasoning makes sense to me.
I can't tell you how many constituents I've had call complaining that they couldn't wear a
MAGA
Trump hat or, something in the polls. And
again,
that's been so frustrating.
well. I mean, and again, that's an established.
Yeah.
You
It's just
can't-
all of a sudden it's become a big issue. Or recording your vote.
yeah.
Because they see on Twitter that in some other state, someone was recording as they're trying to vote, and they get upset because they're like, they won't even let me use my cell phones. Well, they must be corrupt.
That, I think, is
There's
a-
lots of little things.
That, to me, is an election integrity measure because in our past, people would get fired lose their jobs or threaten to lose their jobs if you don't bring the boss a receipt for how you voted. Did you vote the right way? People get paid directly for returning a receipt for voting the right way.
Right.
I mean, there are all sorts of second-order consequences you got to think about with.
And see, I never even thought about that. So,
you know,
good point.
So it is sort of it protects your liberty to vote your conscience.
Yeah. So you're saying every time I gave someone a bonus because they said they voted for me? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Stop recording. Stop recording.
Again, folks, for those of you who are just listening.
Joking.
Well, so let's move on from a national down to your district.
Sure.
Things that you're seeing, this you got elected in 2016.
Yes, I still
initially-
cannot believe how.
So you're a little long in the tooth now.
I know.
You know,
I still remember election night with him.
Right?
He didn't even think he was going to win. We were all excited.
I
Yeah.
made apologies to a lot of the folks who helped out on the campaign that I'd let them down. I'm sorry, we're going to lose.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
And then it didn't work out. It
Yeah.
worked out the right way, not that way.
Hey, your supporters busted their asses to get you in there.
Yeah.
Could
So
not have done. I mean, really,
everyone
I'm-
believed in you. I mean, and we said that before we started recording. I talked about your leadership at a young age and how people were willing to follow you in. And in my personal opinions, I don't think the York County Republican Party has quite been the same since you left. But you left for a better position.
Yeah.
And you challenged and won right away. I mean, you're one of those that, have you ever lost an election? I don't think so.
No, but I mean the sample size is pretty small, right? You know.
Yeah, but the upset was huge. I mean, probably one of the biggest shockers in the state.
So the decision I made was, if I run and lose, will I believe that it was worth it? And to me, elevating those issues that mattered to me, elevating how broken the Senate was, mattered enough to make that sacrifice, frankly, for my business and family, because those issues needed to be addressed. And if I ran and lost, I would still believe it was worth it.
Well, and so let's talk about some of those now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, I know CON, how we elect judges. What's the new frontier? What do you want to tackle?
Yeah.
You know, in this next term, I know we all talk about it. We're sort of the young bucks as far as being in the political arena, but I did hear, because we were on Straight Talk with Manning at the same time, and you know, I was on the phone conducting my business in the parking lot while you were doing your interview, but I didn't listen to it later.
Safe distance.
But I was very encouraged when the next morning I'm shaving and I listened to your interview.
I'm sorry, you fell right back asleep.
and no, but you tackled something that I think every person is excited about, this issue of eliminating the state income tax.
It needs to happen.
You know?
It needs to happen. The people are overtaxed.
Yeah.
There have been
Surplus.
billion-dollar surplus after, yeah, exactly. And so if the people are overtaxed, it's a pretty urgent problem.
Yeah.
It needs to be solved. And so people have talked about doing fundamental tax reform for 20 years.
We talked about it with Senator Bennett down in Charleston.
But it's tough to make those changes as you came in very early and try to,
Right.
you know, garner support.
Yep.
Now you've got a little bit of tenure under you, and hopefully it's something that we can get moving.
Yeah.
I think we will need serious gubernatorial leadership. That's going to have to happen. And then my experience has been, and look, I've been proven wrong plenty of times, but unless somebody is willing to totally bog down the process and make an issue of it and say, no, we're not going another step down this road on the wrong direction. We're going to stop now and go in the right direction. It's going to be painful, but that's what we're going to do. Then it's not going to happen.
I mean, that's what I think about Act 388.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, let's unwind that. You know?
yeah, I mean, I know that's a hard ask for everyone to do, but I think it is one of the biggest cancers that we've put on this state. And I understand we a lot of Republicans got in power due to Act 388.
Well, and
but
it was probably well intentioned.
we're seeing that it doesn't work, because then we end up incentivizing businesses to come here, which the schools don't get funded properly because of that. And we see the schools basically applying for grants, doing things that we don't want on a federal level just to make up for the funding.
So if you want less of something, tax it. If you want more of something, incentivize it, right? If you want more of something, you should tax it less. We want more earnings, and we want more asset ownership. So we should reduce taxation of earnings, income tax, and assets, property tax. And what are we less concerned about, which is consumption. So more of our tax, more state revenue should shift towards sales tax, and less should be on property and
I agree.
income.
Consumption tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that became the issue, the argument that I've had over pennies for progress. Like, I understand if you don't want to pay an extra penny in sales tax, but if we are going to tax, I think it's one of the best ways to tax, because the money stays within the area that is taxed. So you're getting 100% return, you're getting 100% transparency, and the people get to choose instead of the elected officials choosing on whether they think that it's worth it or not.
Sure.
Well, and those are some of the things that we talked about with Sean Bennett out of Somerville. And that's probably going to be some of the pain, right? Of our tax code is got so many carve-outs and so many well-intentioned, whether it's provisos or regs or legislation attached to it.
The entire services sector, not the entire, most of the services sector is exempt from sales taxation. So what the things that everyone buys, durable goods, things that everybody buys, is taxed. The things that only wealthy people buy
Like accountants?
like financial advisors, like me, attorneys. Those things are not taxed. Those things, frankly, you ought to substantially slash taxes and then extend consumption taxes to a broader universe of services. And in that way, you can really get a low tax rate and have a fairer tax system.
Right. And then I could see getting the argument from the opposing side saying, well, we need a progressive tax and this, that, and the other. But in theory, that is a progressive tax.
It is.
In the sense of, if you make $1 million, you're going to consume more, right?
Right.
Whether it's goods and services.
If you're broke, you're not buying as much. Yeah.
Well, and then the another kind of second order effect of that is consumption taxes encourage investment. And rather than spending the money and paying taxes, I don't have to pay taxes if I invest it.
Right.
Investment, capital formation, investing in business, new business generation, small business growth, all these sort of virtuous things that you want to happen in the economy are incentivized to a greater degree by consumption taxes than income and asset taxes.
Yep. But what kind of pushback do you think?
Everyone who likes the way it is now is going to be against change.
Who likes the way it is now?
Hey,
Well, a lot of people
they're going to come out of the woodwork, man. They're going to come out of every nook and cranny that's got a carve out over the last 20, 30 years. 100%. Just like Senator Bennett was saying. He says, hey, I just want it a fair...
Senator Bennett, whenever we had him on, this is one of the things I've always loved. I always tell people, Wes is, I think I even said this to the speaker whenever I came in there, Wes is one of the politicians that I agree with 90% of the time, but the 10% that I disagree tells me why I was wrong.
I don't know if that feels like a compliment.
But Senator Bennett was one of those because I've often argued that on some of these scorecards, which I don't have a perfect score on any scorecard because I think that they're all special interests to begin with. Republican or a Democrat, doesn't matter. They're all special interests. If they're scoring you, they have an interest.
Look, a scorecard is like writing your own book.
Yeah.
and so...
if you don't do what we say, then we're going to give you a negative review.
All of a sudden, you got
But I got, I think it was CPAC. 3 of the 4 things that they gave me a negative rating on was tax incentives or tax breaks.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I've always taken more of the libertarian approach of thinking taxation is theft. I don't care who I'm giving a break to. As long as I'm cutting taxes, then...
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
I pledged, and I have abided this pledge, that I will not vote to raise taxes. I didn't say I wouldn't vote to raise taxes on everyone but this group of people. I said I wouldn't vote to raise taxes. And so when you vote against continuing an existing tax deduction...
Well, you have a better score than me on CPAC. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, they did different House and Senate votes.
Okay.
I said I wasn't going to vote to raise taxes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to vote to raise taxes, and if that means a negative scorecard from a, quote, conservative group who wants me to vote to raise tax... What?
Yeah, you don't have RJ in there telling them how to score things, right?
I'm just not going to vote to raise taxes.
And I think one of the ones that got sort of our grade...
I knew the Scout deal did.
I think the Scout deal did, and then also the abandoned building tax credit to extend it.
Yeah.
I think that
was one of them. I mean, I don't care what tax credit it is. I don't care if it's for EVs, even though I'm not big on EVs. If it's a tax credit, I'm for it. Any way that I can save the taxes is the way I was looking at it.
Yeah.
Well,
but Bennett's the one who told me the more that you're voting for those, the less that we can have true tax reform.
And he and I have had some great discussions about it, and I have a huge amount of respect for. I mean, he is a great guy. My view also is that strategically, if you vote to eliminate these tax breaks when they come up, then you're increasing the size and scope of government. And so when you finally get around to fundamental tax reform, then the baseline of tax revenue will be higher than it would have been if you had voted to extend those tax breaks. And so starting from a lower base means that the net taxation will be lower when you do tax reform than if you'd let all those things expire along the way.
What's the difference between the way Tennessee does taxes and the way we do it? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Wes always seems to have the answer, so he always seems to know. So I was like, maybe he knows this.
I think it's heavier on consumption than we thought.
Yeah.
But
Same
I mean, they've increased their...
Florida and Tennessee are our nearest neighbors with no personal income tax on a state level.
I mean, personal income tax is not very high in South Carolina.
What is it, like 6.4?
Yeah, I think it might be a touch below that now. I can't because the
and we're not talking about the effective tax rate.
Yeah, the effective tax rate is much lower.
Yes.
That's fascinating. But the the highest marginal tax rate is declining by, what is it, like 0.2% every
Yeah.
year for 2 or 3 more years?
Yeah. I think it's down to 6.4, 6.3, something like that.
Yeah.
But, we've had discussions over in the House, even the off season. We're all very interested in
Heath does.
How do we
I don't get
accelerate?
invited to those.
how do we accelerate those breaks.
Yeah.
I don't get those Illuminati meeting invites, so I don't.
So that's why I was really wanting to talk to you about it, because when you mentioned that, I said, hey, we've had a conversation with Senator Climer now, Senator Bennett, both talking about an overhaul of our tax structure. And we've had these meetings with House members in the offseason saying the same thing. Like, can we at least accelerate the personal income tax? And this, you want to talk about competition. A lot of this driver may be the surpluses, everyone coming here, but also our neighbors. So North Carolina has taken they're doing a better job.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think
Their tax rates are lower.
they're down to like 4.5 and 2.5. I mean, it's something silly.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not talking about effective. I'm talking about on paper. But, being in York County, it behooves us to make sure we're competing. Otherwise, businesses settle in Charlotte, rooftops.
We're
they
just
take
giving them
advantage.
massive felos.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's the sum of higher income taxes and really confiscatory property taxes is not a good recipe for
Right.
building a solid tax base in a border county.
Correct.
I mean, that's the way the electronic bus people that were coming here. They were putting their headquarters in South Charlotte and putting the
workers.
manufacturer down here because of the philo.
Yeah.
But their headquarters and all the income tax is going to stay in South Charlotte.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a fascinating topic. I know we could talk here for hours.
You
And
really could. I mean, you
we're
could-
way off subject of the national elections.
You
I
could talk for
apologize.
days about that.
We segued like 15 minutes ago. But so, is this a start of a conversation, you think? I mean, knowing what you know and how slow government is to, I mean,
Yeah, I have gotten increasingly frustrated with the lack of action on that,
yeah.
and I'm not.
How many big issues can you take on in a year, though? I mean,
As far as the
just
body
in
or
our
just-
2 years, no, just as
2 or
one
3.
man. And I understand, like,
Yeah.
CON was big. But whenever I ran my election, you're the one who pointed out the way our judiciary system worked. So I was one of the few that ran on judicial reform as a freshman. I get in, participate in, according to the Home Builders Association, evidently I was against judicial reform, which is complete BS. But I was one of the few that did it based on you pointing it out to begin with. And, your first year we had CON, or my first year got CON repealed, which is something you had been fighting for forever.
Yeah.
And it was like huge win for Climer.
Well,
Next,
it's a huge win for patients, is what I mean.
I know, but I'm just saying this was something that you had been battling forever, right? So you got that win. The following year, judiciary reform. You were the catalyst on that on the Senate side. I mean, you and some other senators,
There's
but
a lot of-
you were the ones. You were the one putting your foot down
I think
and saying this
Well,
has to
so-
be done.
I want
So-
to be very clear. None of this stuff happens.
It's a team effort.
Yes, this is this is very much a
But
team
we're
sport.
speaking about York County.
Yeah, I'm just talking about York County delegation.
Yeah. And so what I think he's alluding to, and what I'm catching, I'm sniffing a little bit from your tone is,
What are you going to be a jerk about next?
it's,
Well, you can only take. My feeling
no,
is
I'm
you
just-
can only take on one big thing
as a senator,
at a time.
being one of 46.
Yeah, different procedural tools.
Correct.
Yeah.
There are things that are in your toolbox that aren't in a House member's that you can effectively stand at the bridge and
Say seats taken.
try to say, hey, you got to come through. I'm going to have some input on this. Let's sit down. We're going to have a conversation.
You can't take a hostage you're not willing to shoot. Right? And so...
I like that.
Right, otherwise,
Yeah.
they'll call your bluff and you're done. I don't know if it requires somebody taking the budget hostage. And that would be a much heavier lift than anything else I've gotten within a mile of touching. But I don't know if that's a hostage that you can really.
I don't know that we
you
have
know?
the numbers to be able to do so.
But maybe that is what is required in order to force the issue.
Yeah. Well, and again,
But that's a really complex, difficult.
yeah, 100%.
Get-
And again,
And are
I
we
think,
willing to shoot the budget?
You
you know, that would be the
compel a
Well,
government.
big thing.
I think the argument is, hey, this is a priority.
yeah.
Let's start having these serious conversations now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, election day is next week. Once we know the makeup of each body, let's start having conversations, real conversations. I mean, we have, you know, Chairman Bannister has done a great job with the budget over the last 2 years. You know, our speaker came from the Ways and Means, two adept, smart guys. Same thing on your side. Harvey out of Cherokee County, just a county over, very adept. You, Bennett, I mean, everybody get in a room, start talking. You know?
It's on you, Wes. I'm just kidding.
I mean, if things go the way we have projected them to go, you know, the weather ain't going to change here in South Carolina. Everyone's still coming here for business-friendly. Climate is good. You know, I mean, we've got a massive influx of people. What was that article that said by 2040 there's going to be another 1 million people here?
Yeah.
In York County, Spartanburg, Greenville, Horry, and Berkeley are going to receive 80% of those.
Wasn't that the same article that said we'll be out of energy in under a decade?
Maybe. That's
Yeah.
a possibility.
Random aside, there's this group called CERC, Southeastern, whatever, that does, it's the Southeast sort of electricity planning body. And their projections for our reserve margin ratios in the Carolinas, which is how much excess, you know, what's your reserves, will decline from 24% in 2023 to 11% in 2033. 11% means that on a peak day in the winter and a peak day in the summer, there are blackouts.
Yeah. And energy, and you know, my passion is tech.
Sorry,
But I do believe that
no.
in order to get tech, we've got to increase energy.
Yeah.
And I think that we're at the beginning of the next revolution. And if we can lead in energy, then we can bring those positions.
Sure.
And we can have more control over it. And these tech companies are willing to supplement. I know everyone wants to complain about data centers,
Yeah.
but the standard Google search takes 8 times the amount of data now than it did just 5 years ago.
Sure.
So as AI is beginning to implement more, it's going to cost a lot more energy to make this happen. So companies are willing to offset, which can keep our consumers' prices down a little bit lower. I know small businesses see it as they're paying more by bringing it in, but these companies are willing to put their money where their mouth is.
Well, and not to
help out.
mention, you know, our power is below the national average, right? It's cost effective.
It is less expensive per kilowatt hour than the national average. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and another good thing is now that the Senate is following the House, I mean, a year late,
You're late.
y'all finally taking this seriously.
Yeah.
But, you know, the good
Thank
thing
you
is,
for your leadership.
hey, that was Speaker and Jay West. You can thank them, send them a card. But no, seeing the ad hoc committees, you know, seeing that you guys are bringing in the southern and the regional power generation folks and utilities, y'all are taking this seriously. It's a priority for your body. That's awesome because the House is ready to go, right? So now that your leadership and you guys are ready to go, I think
Hopefully we can get something.
I think top of January, I think
quick.
coming together. I
There's a
think
real chance that energy is the first thing the Senate does.
Correct.
If not fixing the school choice issue.
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exciting. So I mean, right off the rip, in a second term, if we're blessed enough to win next week, energy. You think school choice?
It has to be fixed with the court decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe some tort reform.
I
Maybe.
would say with me not having a challenger, I have a better chance of losing than either one of you do with the challenger.
Never take anything for granted.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Senator Climer, thanks for joining the show
Yes, thank you.
again.
Always a pleasure. Thank
Yep.
you. You know,
And I know you got.
I'm not saying I'm offended when I don't get an invite, but I certainly appreciate when I do.
Well, I mean, truthfully, this kind of started whenever me and Heath were talking about the newsletters, but it's amazing how much we get accomplished just sitting by a fire and having a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some of it comes, because I think all three of us like to play devil's advocate in some point to ensure that each one of us are thinking about an issue.
What do you mean? You say that we
And it's
can respectfully disagree?
Well,
have some
I don't
thoughtful
even think it's
discussion?
disagree. I just think it's using whatever the argument might be against that you might have said, is this a good argument, and bouncing it off one another to
Yeah.
figure out, like, oh, well, this okay, now that makes sense.
All to make you sound smarter. You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, it'd be working.
All right.
And let me say this. Thank you for. I really appreciate y'all doing this. I mean, I talk
Yeah.
to a lot of people who, more than your two listeners, who listen and learn a lot from it. I mean, y'all are really doing a great public service with this, and you do it well. And I would say that if you weren't here right in front of me, it really is entertaining and serves a really great purpose. I'm
Well,
grateful to both of you.
I
for doing it.
apologize for the explicit every once in a while.
Yeah. As long as you come back, the collective IQ raises at least 10, 15 points.
Yeah,
As long as
it takes a little bit to drag me up.
Otherwise, it's two guys having a beer talking about rap music or something. You know? So, hey, thanks to Comer Distributing.
Yes.
Again,
Sycamore.
for sponsoring. Yeah, Beach Candy.
Yes.
Always a good one. I know we've had Mountain Candy before
I think we did, yeah.
on the Sycamore on the last episode, but
This one's
yeah.
beach candy. I actually
Hey,
liked it a lot.
two listeners, thanks for listening. Y'all have a good week. And get out to vote, damn it.
Microphone check, 1, 2. Hey, yo, you ready to get down, man?
Whatever, man. Whatever, man.